it's not the song, it's everything you do around it. I mean, there really is no barriers to what can be created in that environment. If there's a moment where this would be great and I can get the best possible result, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to save things.
It's another week on Mobile Music Thursday. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we've got another really incredible professional to talk about who's been in the business a long time and has some real insights to share in terms of music, why they play, what works for them, what doesn't work, and just the whole world of doing the magic that we do when we're out mobile DJing. This week, my guest is a close friend of mine, someone that I've had the privilege of knowing for years, working with on different projects, and we have a really long history together, so I'm really excited that we get to spend some time talking about the craft of DJing. This is Brian Kelm. He works out of Madison, Wisconsin, and serves all of Wisconsin in that area. A lot of people are really thrilled to have him creating their experience for them, because more beyond just doing the music or doing great sets and great playlists, which he does all of that, he also creates extraordinary moving and touching experiences for couples all over Wisconsin as well as the Midwest. So it's my pleasure to really welcome Brian Kelm to the show. Brian, welcome to Mobile Music Thursday.
Hey, Jason, good morning. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and thank you so much for thinking of me.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a long time coming. It's like, gosh, why haven't I had you on before? So I'm just going to have you on more often now to make up for it.
That's cool. Very cool.
So we're talking about mobile music, and we're talking about the music we play and the way that it that affects people. And so let's begin by really looking at the weddings that you do, and kind of get a high level overview as you go in to perform a wedding, and you're thinking about the music that you're going to be doing just on a high level, not necessarily specific songs. You know, what is your kind of game plan going in, or thoughts about the approaches you're going to take around your music selections that night?
Sure. Number one, it starts with a blank canvas. Every couple's love story is different. I want to maximize every single opportunity to bring something of personality into it. That the event always has a beginning, middle, and end, every part of it, and to take their selections, whether they consciously know them or not, as throughout the planning process we will go through all this. But I look for tempo, I look for mood, and I use as many visuals as possible so that there's a lot of variety. It always keeps people guessing, and it really brings in all the psychology. I'm finding a lot more upbeat stuff throughout various different parts of the evening. Later in the planning process, I do give my couples, we talk about music really later on, because it's all about the production and putting it all together. But when we start talking about their music in the varieties and whatnot, they really give me kind of free reign to create and read a crowd and do it in the moment. But the most amount of involvement for guests, how much they believe in it, how much they feel like playing along, and it's just a wonderful space to be in. But I want to maximize every single type of music that they like, and trying to weave it into the whole day, whether it be the ceremony, the cocktail hour, the dinner, and then throughout the reception.
Sure. So when you have that conversation with your couples about music, like you said, you kind of get to music toward the end. What is that conversation like? What kind of questions are you asking them? What are you looking for to be able to create for them?
Sure. What I simply ask them is, I'm just consider your cocktail hour, in many different parts. Consider that your cocktail, segueing to your dinner does not have to be just one lump thing, or one lump variety like Kenny G or something that's going to bore the heck out of people. Okay. I want to eventually, what I want to do is I want to start, kind of mellow or whatever, because when everybody arrives, they're getting their bearings straight of where they're at. But I want everybody to be toe tapping at the end of everything, so then when we move into the next phase, so it would be dinner, they're toe tapping, and then just psychologically the tempo goes up, so it's like there's a transition to what we're doing next. Just like when you're at a movie or at a show, they don't have to say anything to know something's changing. They can just dim the lights or whatever, and you're ready to go. It's a wonderful conversation, but what I do is I really kind of stretch the whole wedding out and bring out the magnifying glass to look at each piece, and if they have songs on the request list for open dancing, and we go through, I look at every single thing to ask them, okay, what's the importance of this song? Because if I have an opportunity to create something special with them, and I can bring out their sorority sisters or whoever it might be to involve more people, it's not the song, it's everything you do around it. And it's
Okay.
just a wonderful thing to be in because they've never thought about it that way, and they've never had somebody look at it with a magnifying glass.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure. So
it's
you're
just
trying
great,
to
but
identify.
it's not a
So, oh, sorry.
conversation. Oh no, it's a conversation that's ongoing, but it's done at the proper time because after all the planning and all of the different things that we're going to do throughout the wedding day, they can see that a song is just a song. It's kind of like the icing on the cake if you don't have the whole other process around it. And you know, you can have the best playlist on the planet, but if you don't have all the other tools or all the other pieces in place, it's just a playlist. So,
Sure. And so, at the risk of being a little redundant, what are some of those pieces in place that inform the music? You know, the example you gave around like having a sorority song that you like singing, or you know, choosing music or choosing songs that have some kind of significance, meaning to the time in their life or an activity or something like that they can recreate is excellent. That's awesome, because then that's gonna just create some magic right there amongst everybody in a brand new moment out of that. What are some of the other pieces that you could think of?
could you elaborate a little bit more? I'm visualizing.
The example that you gave was great in terms of identifying, having the couples identify songs or identify music that maybe are representative of times in their life and experience, or if there's like, oh, we love our fight song from our college, or if they have those sort of things, those are great things to look at and ask about and bring into the production, because obviously, you know, bringing out those songs at a different times with an introduction or even without an introduction to have like, oh, there it is, this is our moment, and they go and create a new moment is really going to create magic, rather than like, well, I'm going to come and play what's popular and play top 40 and people will dance. But taking that one step further and doing that, are there other questions that you ask, or there doesn't have to be, but are there other pieces that inform what you're going to do for music wise?
Sure. What we do is, I mean, it all starts at the plan of what we've created, because then they can visualize it. Because I mean, when you just have a playlist but you have nothing around it, like how is it going to make everybody feel?
Sure.
How is it going to move forward?
Mm-hmm.
I always want to take a risk. I always want to stretch what this can look like, because your cocktail hour has a beginning, middle, and end. Your dinner has a beginning, middle, and end. And for me, when I look at dinner, for instance, I look at it in terms of like the beginning. So like if it's a sit down style dinner where, you know, a 3-course or 4-course, I mean, we're talking about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll have it in my mind. It may not necessarily be that way, but I'll have it in my mind that every 30 minutes it's going to switch. So it's going to go from something a little bit lighter or whatever, but then it's going to go towards something a little bit more upbeat. But then, okay, I'm setting everybody up for what's next in the evening. And it's a fantastic thing to do, because I can start to see people in a different feel, see people in a different mindset. And I'm an observer of people. I mean, I've got a background in psychology amongst other things, and I just love looking around the room and people feeling a different way, but they don't necessarily know why. And playing on, you know, pretty much telling myself that there's always an opportunity to embed a variety that may not be for dancing.
Sure. So what are some? So think back to a wedding that you did that kind of stands out in your memory, and kind of walk us through kind of an example of some of the choices that you made and the setups that you made, and maybe like why you chose that and how that affected the situation. Like thinking about cocktail hour, how that's going to be like broken up into, you know, different moments. It's not just like one long string of jazz. Okay, cocktail hour, jazz, check.
Okay, sure. Well, let's see here. The most recent one would be Brad and Jessica's wedding last year in October 2014, and they had their ceremony across the street. So everybody came on over. It was cold outside. They come in. They pretty much gave me free reign to play whatever. A lot of my customers trust me with that because I'm so involved in it, and so they wanted to keep it really upbeat. So I leaned right towards the adult contemporary stuff that you would hear on a radio station that, you know, will get you toe tapping and stuff that you would actually, you know, jive and move and groove to when you're doing your workout or something.
Would this be like Jason Mraz, Colby Calais, or even more upbeat than that?
I would say like One Republic.
Oh, okay.
Anna Kendrick's, Cups. I mean, Sarah Bareilles. There's a host of other people, but Michael Bublé is always great in those types of varieties. But I'm always extending what I'm looking at. Like even like Call Me Maybe even has a place in my opinion towards the end of Dinner. I mean,
Sure.
I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but I was in the vehicle the other day and I'm just like, this song would be great. So I made a note of it, and when I got back, I dropped that in the category. So there's always an opportunity to add to things, but without a visual or without an experience, it's going to be hard to put that into perspective.
Sure. So why did you choose those particular songs?
When it came around to Go ahead.
I was going to say, why did you choose that particular set of music, or that genre, that style of music with that particular couple?
Sure. Well, number one, they were really upbeat couple, and they wanted everybody involved. It was a very cozy environment, so they wanted everybody to interact for as much as possible. The bar was open. They created signature cocktails specifically for their wedding based on their tastes and their palate, and they wanted to keep it just very upbeat throughout the whole thing. But obviously that upbeat part can take many different genres of music, many different tempos. And so during Cocktail Hour, it was very adult contemporary, but then Dinner, it got into more classic type stuff like your Beatles, your Stevie Wonder. I mean, there really is no barriers to what can be created in that environment. It's just a matter of if you're willing to, if you have a reason or a purpose to share with your couples, or if you've ever done it before.
Sure.
And there is no ceiling or whatever to create that.
Yeah. And in terms of like, so how did you move through the different phases of that Cocktail Hour into, was did Dinner follow that? Was Dinner the next thing happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The next thing that followed that was their Grand March entrance. It wasn't an actual full-fledged because they wanted to do that later and really blow it out with Bucky Badger, who made a surprise appearance. And so they got introduced into the room, so it was really upbeat anyways leading into it. And then I played Macklemore, Can't Hold Us Now, and they came on in, everybody surrounding, watching this, and then it led into their first dance. So I mean, it's really upbeat, it's lively. So it made a great transition from Cocktail Hour, which is upbeat, to then being introduced in the room for the very first time. And they did their first dance, they did their welcome on the dance floor, and then they made their way up to Dinner. So I mean, everybody was really excited and whatnot, and they're like, ooh, this is going to be a great evening. What else is it going to look like? So it's still keeping the antennas up, and it's still making them curious about how they feel, but also though, there's something different about this wedding. Yeah. And when you tie all those things together, that's what makes it possible.
Sure. How about in the way that you started dance? Do you like in that particular night? Did you do spotlight dances right before the main dance started?
Well, they had their first dance leading into Dinner. Okay, so they came on in, they led their first dance, but then in between courses, we didn't have a lot of room to play with, but we still had a little cubby hole for everybody to enjoy watching them while they're still eating dinner. For their father, daughter, and mother son dances. Now the beautiful part is that was created like at the end of Jessica's father's toast. Kevin, he actually invited his daughter out to the dance floor. So since he already had the focus on him for his toast, on the back end of it, he invited his daughter, and it was fantastic because it just extended the moment, but it also got to something that instead of just putting the father-daughter dances or the father-daughter dance and mother-son dances just somewhere in placement, and then you got to create something around it. We already had the opportunity. It was just a matter of them seeing it and then feeling it.
Right. That's fantastic. And then when you got into actually playing the music for the dance, like what did you actually start? How did you actually segue into and then lead off with to begin the actual dancing part? If the spotlight dances weren't right before the dance to kind of kick it off, how did you set that up? And then what did you start to play?
It was a great question because they had many surprises. Brad and Jessica had many surprises for their audience, and one of them was Bucky Badger, which is the UW mascot. Yeah. And so he was a surprise to everybody. And so we had logistically around the outside of the barn, so nobody saw him and whatnot. That's what kicked us off. Okay, so they actually had their grand entrance or their grand march with everybody. And it was something where we had limited time with Bucky, so we had to get him on in. So it's upbeat. Everybody's surrounding the dance floor. What we came out of was is a slideshow all day, or the same day presentation, and then within 5 minutes I got everybody surrounding the dance floor, and then the wedding party decorated themselves with all sorts of red and white hats and necklaces and all of that to make it more fun. And then they come to the dance where everybody's clapping and cheering. Immediately, every single song that they had was for per couple. So everybody had that variety going on. But then as soon as Jessica and Brad came to the dance floor, then Bucky Badger popped out of nowhere, and then Jump Around let us off.
You let off with Jump Around. That's great. So you're coming on with like really high energy. Everyone is pulled in. Everyone's gauged. You've built up to this moment even to get it started. So you're not even like relying on your music to build that energy up. You've built it up with this whole big setup. And so where did you go from Jump Around? Did you heighten the energy from there? Like take it up more, or did you bring it down a notch? How did you go to the next thing?
Sure, I heightened the energy for several reasons. Number one, for the photographer and for the videographer, because the photographer was going to be taking a break a little bit after we did that.
Okay.
And so I wanted to make sure they got as much dancing photos as possible. We did a group photo, which was very easy because I got a packed dance floor, so I just asked everybody, in the moment to turn to me. And so I had the photographer right there. We did a couple shots, and the music heightened. I mean, Party Rock Anthem, Don't Stop the Party by Pitbull is always a classic, even though it's a year or two old.
Right.
And it just matched everybody's energy, and it didn't make any difference what their age was. Everybody was a part of it. It was a packed dance floor. They also had another surprise for everybody with a band doing a set.
Oh, so wow!
There's all these surprises being revealed to everybody, but without the music in the proper place and just everybody connected to a purpose, the music would have just been songs.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so like once you at what point did you stop building, because you were heightening for the photographer and heightening that energy and keeping everyone going. And was there a point to which you were like, okay, we need to drop down and rebuild, or drop down and segue into something else?
Yeah, what I did was I could see sweat pouring off of people's faces. And so that was my cue that we built it up. Eventually what I did was I heightened it, but then gradually, like a ladder, I went back down.
Oh, okay. So what did you recall what you went back down with as you started to take it back down? And
sure,
are you talking about like the same kind of top 40 dance kind of music, but just bringing your tempo and intensity down?
No, what I did was I knew that I could have everybody with all those popular songs because they're recognizable and familiar, but then I backed down to like old time rock and roll.
Oh, okay.
I backed down to, the Romantics, What I Like About You, and stuff that's very fun. It caters to all audiences and people can sing along. So we still have the participation in a packed dance floor, but we're just moving it in a different way.
Right, so a genre shift. That's terrific. Yeah. And then, but still keeping a lot of energy, but not as intense or as heightened as some of the dancey stuff that you were doing before within the top 40 range. And so, where do you go from there? Is that time for a slow set at that point, or are you looking to shift into another genre?
No, what I did was I got it down to Build Me Up Buttercup. Okay. I'm not afraid of playing songs. I mean, I have no script in terms of like, hey, if there's a moment where this would be great and I can get the best possible result, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to save things. Like for instance, like Neil Diamond's "Sweet Caroline."
Yeah.
It's a traditional song to play at the end of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect song also to start off the dancing because everybody's familiar with it. You can get a big circle going right away, and you're not going to offend anybody. You're not going to upset anybody. It's going to be favorable. And so, sorry I digress, but after Build Me Up Buttercup, I went into a slow set because then I knew, I'm like, okay, I start seeing grandparents. I start seeing the parents and other couples, aunts and uncles, where it's something specifically for them,
Yeah.
And plus it also builds trust.
Totally.
All the trust I've been building throughout the whole night also now caters to those couples where it's like, okay, wow, he's even catering to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way the whole night was. People would get tired, more people would come on the dance floor, more people would come back. I mean, it's just this, they danced as much as they had energy to.
Sure. Yeah, totally. So what does that communicate to that audience, or those people in that audience, that like, oh, he's catering to us too, like he's speaking our language as well? What are you communicating to them as a DJ with that?
Hopefully, I mean, now obviously I'm not down, but I mean, in terms of testimonials and the video testimonial they gave me at the end of the night, that it's not my party. I'm there for them.
And to
They
make it a
shared
party
with
for
me.
everybody there, not just like, oh, the young people that like the, hip hop, or this group that likes country, but it's like really trying to find a way around to everybody there.
Yeah, and the thing was, I mean, working with a band too, that also creates potential issues, or opportunities that you have to overcome. I don't want to say it's a problem, but there are things, especially with tempo and all of that, and how you bounce back and forth. But with the audience or whatever is that this is for them. This is not for me. And what happens is that Jessica and Brad in the planning process, in some of my papers, is that there's a sheet in terms of cocktail and dinner where they can create that, but then open dancing and do not play. But then I also, if a customer wants me to, and there's only been one ever since I started that didn't want me to do this, but I walk around to all the dinner tables, and I learned that from Todd Mitchum years ago, and it just stuck. I mean, it's great. And so I go around by tables so they can see me, I can laugh with them, but then they can tell me in the moment what they want to dance to.
Sure.
So there's instant trust built. My playlist is a combination of what Jessica and Brad gave me in conjunction with what the audience gave me that day. And that's what I get to play with. That's what I get to create with. And it's fantastic.
Sure. So it sounds like to you, like really getting informed on what everybody wants to hear is not limiting in any way. It's like that you're letting them give you the palette of colors, and then you get to paint with it.
And so they can enjoy the event. They can fully embrace the experience that's been created, the love that's in the air. One of my pet peeves that I very much dislike is having people come up, and say, hey, you taking requests? And so you got these people backed up 5 deep, and it's like they're not even, I'm not a radio station.
Yeah.
And I would rather get all of that interaction with everybody about what they want to dance to up front, so that I have, number one, I have a full evening to embrace it, and to create with it and play with it, but they're not sidetracked by what they're there for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does, yeah. So they can stay involved and not be hung up on like, when are you going to play my song? I wanted that song, and they just know like, oh, well, he's interested in what I like. So it's this is going to be fun and coming up and that sort of thing. How many slow sets do you play in a night typically?
Wow, I don't even keep track of that, and that might be bad of me or whatever.
Well, if you're going to guess, I mean, do you try to play more slow sets? Do you try to play fewer slow sets?
Every wedding is different, but I would have to say, I mean, 3 or 4 maybe, 2 slow song sets. I mean, 1 is too short and 3 is always too much, is from what I've witnessed. Sometimes it may extend to 3 or whatever, but there's a purpose, because everybody's just been dancing, for the past 45 minutes without any break, But 2 is a good number, and I would have to say, just to be as accurate as I can, I would probably say 3 to 4 of those throughout a night.
Sure.
There could be more, there could be less, depending on the group. But I mean, you just have to have that little balance to break up the evening for everybody that just wants a moment with their spouse or their boyfriend or girlfriend, and allowing everybody just to use the restroom, go out and have a cigarette or whatever they need to do.
Right.
And then reconvene on the dance floor.
That's awesome. This has been so great, Brian. This is so great and so enlightening and insightful. I've got 2 final questions for you, and these are more questions like just questions as a DJ, kind of like from DJ to DJ kind of questions. So the first is there a song that you absolutely love and wish that everybody loved to dance to it? For example, like my song is I've always loved the song Raise a Little Hell by Trooper. It's a Canadian tune. It's done really well in Canada, and I was like, it's such a great party anthem to go out on the dance floor. But I've never, ever had audiences like really grab a hold of it, maybe once or twice in my entire career. So that's one of those songs for me where I was just like, oh, I wish that people would love this more because it's so great. But they don't, and I don't hardly play it anymore. Is there a song like that for you?
I'm going to kind of date myself here. I am only 35 years old, but I take a liking to glam rock because it was such a short period of time throughout musical history. I would have to say 2 songs. Number 1, Poison, Nothing But a Good Time.
Yes.
And then number 2 is Twisted Sister, God Bless Dee Snider and the boys, We're Not Gonna Take It.
Yeah, that is another one where it's like, this is such a... there was a short window when it was first came out, speaking of dating ourselves, where everybody's like, yeah! And then it just kind of... and then it just stopped. And it's like, you don't get the yeah anymore. That's absolutely one of those songs. I would totally... yeah. Not that I need to agree, but I'm totally with you on that. All right, my last question is this then. Is there a song that everybody is absolutely nuts about? You cannot go an event without playing it, but yet you wish it would just go away.
Boy. Man, I mean, pick any of the cheesy songs. I mean, I know that they have all their purpose. Placement is properly done. If placement is there, the more people involved. I would have to say...
this is just personal taste is all this question is.
Okay. Gangnam Style.
Gangnam Style? You're ready to be done with Gangnam Style.
I mean, I don't play it a whole lot, but I mean, I just think it's, to each their own. I mean, I embarrass myself quite a bit, and I have fun with it, self-deprecating humor, but I just I don't find any purpose.
Right,
I mean?
right. It's like let it be over. Let it be over. That's super fun. Thank you so much, Brian. Thanks for being on Mobile Music Thursday this week. There's always so much more to talk about than we have time, so I look forward to having you back on the show at a future time.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Jason. Thanks so much for thinking of me and making a part of your show. It was truly a great time, and I'll be smiling the rest of the day as a result. So thanks, Jason.
Aw, awesome. Thank you. My guest, Brian Kelm, this week on Mobile Music Thursday. We have new shows that come up on DJNTV every single week. Be sure to watch the show on Tuesdays with Ben Stowe. He gives you everything you ever want to know and more about all the technical knowledge that you need to be able to sound the best when you're out there playing and performing with your gear. It's a great show. It's here on DJNTV every Tuesday. Until next Thursday, this is Jason Jones saying so long.